Once upon a time, deep in the north of Zimba Kingdom, there was a woman named Annabell. She was known throughout the villages for her strength, yet her spirit held a darkness that few could understand. One day, haunted by a life that felt more like a cage than a blessing, she found herself in the forest, seeking a way to forget. The air was heavy, as though the trees themselves bore witness to the weight of her past. Annabell arrived at the doorstep of the old village witch doctor, a man whose face was etched with deep lines, his eyes sharp with knowledge he rarely shared. "I can give you a fresh start," he whispered to her, "a potion that will take away all your pain, your memories, the very pieces of your past." He handed her a small, dark vial, its contents shimmering with a strange hue. "But know this, child," he added, "some things cannot truly be forgotten. They leave shadows." Desperation coursed through Annabell as she held the vial to her lips, swallowing the potion without a second thought. The moment the liquid touched her throat, a wave of dizziness washed over her, and she felt herself falling, the forest spinning around her. She collapsed to the forest floor, her eyes fluttering shut. When she awoke, the memories of her life were gone. She felt weightless, as if a great burden had been lifted, but there was a cold emptiness in her mind, a sense that something was missing. She couldn't remember who she was or why she had come to this place. With a tentative step, she wandered through the forest, the sounds of nature somehow foreign yet comforting. She was a blank slate with no past to haunt her. Eventually, she stumbled upon a small village nestled at the foot of the mountains. The villagers, warm-hearted and curious, welcomed her, though they were puzzled by her amnesia. "Where did you come from?" they asked. "What brought you here?" But Annabell had no answers. "I don't remember," was all she could say. An elderly woman named Mama Fola took her in, offering food, shelter, and for the first time in a long while, peace. Annabell grew fond of the village and worked alongside the villagers, helping in the fields, laughing with children and sharing meals. But as the days passed, Annabell began to feel a strange emptiness within her, a quiet disquiet that seemed to lurk in the background. She often found herself staring into the distance, haunted by fragmented dreams, flashes of faces, and places that she couldn't place. Shadows of a past she couldn't grasp hovered at the edges of her mind. And then there were the dreams. Night after night, Annabell saw herself standing on a cliff, overlooking a stormy sea, the wind tugging at her hair. Beside her stood a tall man, his face blurred, yet somehow familiar. And always there was a sense of something sinister, a warning echoing in her mind. Each morning, she woke with her heart racing, the dream lingering like a whisper she couldn't quite hear. One evening, as the village prepared for the annual harvest festival, a stranger arrived. He was tall and imposing, his cloak hiding much of his face, but his eyes, sharp and watchful, caught Annabell's immediately. Something in his gaze unsettled her, a flicker of recognition that stirred the very core of her being. The villagers greeted him cautiously, but he showed no interest in their words. His gaze was locked on her. "You," he said, his voice low, sending a chill down her spine. "You belong to me." A shiver of fear coursed through Annabell, though she couldn't understand why. She didn't remember him, but his presence evoked something dark within her. Before she could respond, Mama Fola intervened, standing protectively between them. "She belongs to no one," Mama Fola said firmly, her voice steady as she stared down the stranger. He didn't argue, but cast Annabell a look filled with a promise that whatever connection they shared wasn't over. That night, Annabell was unable to sleep. The stranger's words echoed in her mind, tugging at memories buried deep within her. In her dreams, flashes of her former life began to surface. She saw herself by the stormy sea again, standing on that cliff with the man at her side. The scenes grew darker, a love that had turned dangerous, a man who had become possessive and controlling. She had been desperate to escape him, and now the memories of why she had sought to forget came flooding back, piece by painful piece. In the morning, her heart heavy, Annabell wandered into the forest, feeling an inexplicable urge to return to the witch doctor's hut. When she arrived, the small dark structure stood almost hidden among the trees, draped in vines and moss. She knocked, her hand trembling. The old man opened the door, his eyes knowing. "You're remembering, aren't you?" he said, his voice barely a whisper. Annabell nodded, feeling a deep sadness settle over her. Inside the hut, he sat across from the witch doctor, the scent of herbs and incense thick in the air. Looked at her with a solemn expression, explaining what she'd come to learn. "You came to me, running from a life you no longer wanted," began. "A love that had soured, a man who would not let you go. Begged me to help you forget. But I warned you. Some things are too deeply rooted to ever truly disappear." Memories came flooding back in vivid detail. The stranger had once been her lover. They had been deeply in love, but his affection had twisted, becoming possessive. She had become desperate to escape. He realized now that no potion could erase a bond so entangled with both passion and pain. "What do I do now?" Annabell asked, her voice barely a whisper. The witch doctor's face remained unreadable as he handed her a small amulet. "This will keep him at bay," he said. "But know this, if you choose to confront him, you must be ready to face the darkness he brings." Determined not to let fear control her, Annabell returned to the village, clutching the amulet. As she neared the village, she saw the stranger waiting, his gaze fixed on her. It was as though he knew she would come back. "You remember now, don't you?" he asked, his voice soft but filled with danger. Annabell nodded, her heart pounding. "I remember, but I am not the same woman I was before. I won't be controlled by you." His face twisted with a strange mix of anger and regret. "I never wanted to hurt you," he whispered. "I only wanted to keep you." She took a step back, her mind racing, realizing she faced a choice that would shape her future. Would she forgive him, try to rebuild something from the ashes of their love, or would she walk away, finally breaking free from the chains of their shared past? As she met his gaze, a surge of strength filled her. "I'm leaving," she said, voice steady. "Good this time?" The stranger's face darkened, but he didn't try to stop her. "Where will you go?" he asked, his voice filled with quiet resignation. She smiled softly, a sense of peace washing over her. "I don't know, but wherever it is, I'll be free." With that, she turned and walked away, shadows of her past behind her. But as dawn rose and she journeyed forward, strange chill lingered in the air, a quiet reminder that shadows have a way of following, even the ones we think we've left behind. And somewhere in the depths of her mind, Annabell wasn't truly finished. The forest grew darker as she ventured deeper, yet an unexplainable force seemed to guide her steps. She clutched the amulet the witch doctor had given her, finding comfort in its weight against her chest. She knew it was meant to protect her from the man she had left behind, but a part of her couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this charm than she understood. The path she took seemed unfamiliar, winding deeper into shadows that seemed to breathe with her every step. As night fell, she noticed flickers of light ahead, guiding her to a clearing where a group of eerie, silent figures sat around a blazing fire. Her eyes met hers the moment she entered the clearing, each gaze filled with knowing. They were cloaked in black robes, faces hidden beneath hoods, only their piercing eyes visible. She knew immediately that she hadn't stumbled here by accident. One of the figures, an elderly woman with silver eyes that gleamed in the firelight, rose and approached her. "You carry an amulet of remembrance," she said, her voice low and ancient, each word heavy with a strange, foreboding weight. "That charm protects you from the dangers of forgetting. It also binds you to what you tried to escape." Annabell felt a chill settle over her as the woman's words sunk in. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "How do you know about my past?" The woman didn't answer, but instead extended a hand, motioning Annabell to sit with the group. Curiosity and unease battled within her, but Annabell felt compelled to join them. As she sat, figures around her began chanting softly, words in a language she couldn't understand. The air grew thick with an intoxicating scent, and shadows danced around them, their forms shifting and swirling with each verse of the chant. Suddenly, she felt her memories, the very ones she had fought so hard to forget, returning in vivid clarity. Only now she saw new fragments, pieces of her past that had been hidden even from her own mind. She saw herself in the stranger's arms, not just as a lover, but as something darker, a partner in a life they had led together, a life of ancient rituals, secrets whispered under moonlight, and strange promises she had vowed never to break. The man she had feared and fled from wasn't simply an abusive lover. He was bound to her through a pact older than her own understanding. Annabell, the elderly woman's voice, interrupted her visions, bringing her back to the present. The amulet cannot protect you forever. He is part of you, as you are of him. There are bonds that cannot be severed by distance. Annabell felt a surge of panic. I don't want this life, she whispered, desperation lacing her words. I left him. I broke free. I have to be able to leave it behind. The woman's silver eyes softened, but her words were merciless. You may run from him, child, but you cannot run from yourself. Just then, the fire before her flared up, bright and blinding, revealing an image within its flames. Vision of the stranger, her former lover. He was standing in a field, holding something in his hands, something that glowed faintly. It was her amulet, its cord frayed, barely holding together. A smirk curved on his lips, and his eyes glinted with a sinister resolve. She realized, with horror, that he had somehow tracked her, using their bond to locate her even now. In the next instant, the flame died down, leaving her alone in the clearing, the strange figures gone, as if they had vanished into the night. She was left with only silence and the crushing weight of a revelation she hadn't anticipated. A whisper echoed in her mind, a voice both familiar and foreign. The bond cannot be broken, Annabell. You and I are tied by blood and fate. Fear gripped her as she realized that her former lover had, in some twisted way, become a part of her. His presence embedded in her mind, his voice haunting her thoughts. She gripped the amulet tighter, feeling its warmth fade as if it were losing its power. Her journey ahead was no longer simply one of escape. She now had to find a way to sever a connection that went beyond memory and into the very essence of who she was. She needed to find the source of their bond, an ancient secret buried within the dark rituals they had once practiced together. And she knew that her only hope of survival lay in confronting not only him, but the darker parts of herself that she had tried to bury. With renewed determination, Annabell rose and set off deeper into the forest, toward the mountains in the distance. She could feel his presence stronger now, lurking just behind her like a shadow she couldn't escape. But this time, she was ready to face the darkness head-on, to unravel the secrets of her past, and if she was strong enough, to finally break free from the twisted fate that bound them. As dawn approached, she could feel a power rising within her, one she hadn't known she possessed. It was the power of everything she had tried to forget, the rituals, the promises, and the knowledge she had once wielded with him. Only this time, she would use it to break their bond once and for all. The night grew quieter, the air still, as though the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for the battle that was to come. As Annabell ventured toward the mountains, an ominous stillness filled the air. The trees around her seemed to close in, their twisted branches casting eerie shadows in the dim light of dawn. She felt her heart pound, each beat filled with a creeping sense of dread. The amulet, once warm and protective, now lay cold against her chest, its power seemingly drained. Her thoughts raced as she climbed, and with each step, memories flooded her mind, fragments of rituals, moments of bliss and terror, entwined with the stranger she had once loved. She could feel his presence, closer with every step. And then she reached a clearing, desolate stretch of land overlooking a deep chasm. Across the ravine stood a figure cloaked in black, his face hidden but unmistakable. A stranger, her past. Their eyes met. She could feel his pull as if an invisible thread still connected them across the distance. She held the amulet tightly, whispering a desperate incantation. She barely remembered, hoping it would finally sever the bond. As she spoke the last words, something strange happened. The amulet shattered in her hand, releasing a gust of cold air that swirled around her, chilling her to the bone. Her vision blurred, and for a moment, she felt herself slip into a trance-like state. Images flashed before her eyes, a life she didn't recognize, places she'd never been, and faces she had no memory of. As the visions faded, she blinked, feeling suddenly untethered and confused. The figure across the ravine smiled, his face now fully visible, but something was disturbingly off. The man she had thought was her former lover wore a face that was strikingly similar to her own. The resemblance was unmistakable. Her heart raced as she tried to comprehend what she was seeing. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The man simply smiled, his eyes cold and knowing. "I am everything you've forgotten, Annabell, everything you've left behind." Before she could react, he turned and disappeared into the mist, his form dissolving as if he had never been there. Annabell stood in stunned silence, the morning light creeping over the mountains, casting a faint glow on the scene. She was alone now, yet the weight of his presence lingered as if he were watching, waiting. As she descended the mountain, the landscape around her shifted in ways she couldn't explain. The forest felt unfamiliar, almost surreal. She retraced her steps, but nothing seemed recognizable. She walked for hours, yet there was no sign of the village. No paths she recognized, only dense, unending wilderness. By nightfall, she was back where she had started, the edge of the forest near the mountain clearing. The amulet shards were gone, as if they had never existed, and in the distance she saw a faint figure, shadowy and waiting, the same unsettling presence she had tried to escape. Panic rose within her as she realized she was trapped, bound in a strange loop she couldn't break. And as she took a step toward the figure, she felt a haunting whisper in her mind. Some things are never meant to be forgotten. Annabell's fate remained uncertain, as if caught between two worlds, neither past nor future truly hers. Annabell took another step toward the figure, her heart hammering, each beat louder than the last. The air grew colder, and the forest around her seemed to close in, shadows thickening with every breath. She tried to call out, to demand answers, but her voice was swallowed by an eerie silence, as though the world itself was holding its breath. The figure didn't move, but she could feel his eyes on her, piercing and watchful. She forced herself to move closer, her pulse racing, until she was only steps away. Finally, she could see his face, a perfect reflection of her own, distorted and cold, with eyes that gleamed in a way that felt inhuman, ancient. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered, feeling both fear and anger twist within her. "Who or what are you?" The figure tilted his head, a faint, cruel smile playing on his lips. "I am you, Annabell, or rather I am the part of you that you've hidden, buried in your desperation to forget. You thought a potion could erase me, but I was never gone. I've always been here, waiting." A chill ran through her, and she took a step back. "No, I left that life. I left you behind." "Did you?" he asked, voice dripping with mockery. "What makes you think you ever left at all?" As he spoke, the forest around her began to shift, trees twisting and contorting into strange shapes, branches reaching toward her like grasping hands. Shadows danced around her. She felt an overwhelming sense of déjà vu. She was trapped in a memory, one she hadn't consciously recalled, and with dawning horror she realized this was the night she'd first fled him, the night she had begged the witch doctor for a way out. The world blurred again, and suddenly she was standing in the old witch doctor's hut, facing the familiar yet twisted face of the healer. His eyes glowed with an unnatural light as he looked at her, his lips curling into a sinister smile. "You came to me, desperate to forget," he said in a voice that echoed around her, reverberating through her mind. "But memories are like shadows, Annabell. They follow, they cling, and they grow darker with each attempt to escape." In a flash, she was back in the clearing, alone with the figure who wore her face. He raised his hand, and as he did, he felt a sudden, overwhelming pull, as though her very soul were being drawn toward him. She struggled. The force was too strong, binding her to him, pulling her closer until they were inches apart. "Let me go!" she cried, her voice hoarse with fear. "Let you go?" he whispered, his breath cold against her skin. "I am you. There is no escape from yourself." With a final chilling smile, he leaned in, his voice a sinister whisper in her ear. "We are bound." And in that instant, she felt herself fall into darkness, fall into him, into a void where her memories and identity unraveled, merging with the figure until they were indistinguishable. She struggled, clawed at the edges of her mind, but the harder she fought, the more she faded, until there was nothing left but a silent, endless void. The next morning, villagers whispered of strange sightings in the woods. of shadows that seemed to watch and follow. No one ever saw Annabell again, but rumors spread of a figure haunting the forest. A mysterious hooded figure, the face that changed from night to night, but whose eyes were always the same, piercing, haunted, and unmistakably her own. And those who ventured too close would hear a whisper on the wind, a voice that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. Some things are never meant to be forgotten. As Annabell stood face to face with the mysterious figure, her heart pounding with fear and anticipation, felt a surge of defiance. She clenched her fists and met his cold gaze. "Want answers?" she demanded, her voice steady, despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "Who are you?" The figure paused, then began to laugh, a low, hollow sound that seemed to reverberate through the trees. "You've always known," he said, his voice cold and echoing. Slow, deliberate movement, he removed his hood, revealing his face fully. But instead of her reflection, she saw someone else entirely. The face of the witch doctor. Realization hit her like a thunderclap. It wasn't a fragment of her memory or a part of herself. Figure was the witch doctor himself, a spirit cursed to wander, bound to the secrets and regrets of everyone who had come to him. "You fed off my memories," Annabell said, voice rising as clarity settled over her. "You twisted my past to trap me here." The witch doctor's face twisted, his smug expression fading as Annabell's resolve strengthened. "I am bound to the regrets and fears of those I've helped forget," he admitted, his tone growing weary, almost resigned. "But only because people allow me to be. They return, time and time again, letting me control what they've left behind." Annabell took a deep breath. She had finally uncovered the truth. It was a spirit of remembrance, feeding on regret, growing stronger each time someone sought to escape their past without facing it. But she was different. She had chosen to remember, to face whatever pain lay within her memories, instead of running from them. "More," she said with finality, stepping back. "You don't control me anymore. My memories are mine, and I don't need to forget. I'll face them all." The witch doctor hissed, his form beginning to waver. Without her regret to bind him, his presence weakened, his shadow flickering. Desperation crossed his face. He could no longer latch onto her memories. She was free of his hold. As he faded into the mist, his voice lingered, bitter and faint. "You may escape me, Annabell, but you can never escape the truth of who you are." Annabell stood alone, feeling a profound lightness as if a weight had been lifted from her very soul. The forest around her seemed brighter, less foreboding. She turned and walked back toward the village, finally free, not just from him, but from the haunting memories she had tried so hard to escape. She knew she would never forget, but she didn't need to. Her past would always be a part of her, yet it no longer controlled her. She was stronger, and as she emerged from the forest, she felt a peace she hadn't known in years. As Annabell stepped out of the forest's shadow and into the golden light of dawn, she felt each footstep anchor her firmly in the present. Gone was the weight of fear that had clouded her mind. In its place was a calm, fierce resolve. She'd found freedom not by erasing her memories, but by facing them, by accepting every dark and twisted turn her past had taken. When she returned to the village, the people noticed the change in her immediately. There was a strength in her eyes, a sense of peace that made her seem taller, more grounded. Mama Fola, who had taken her in when she first arrived, looked at her with wonder and nodded knowingly. "You've walked the path many don't dare tread," Mama Fola said quietly as Annabell approached her. "To face one's truth and break free from it is the mark of true strength." Annabell nodded, embracing the elderly woman, her gratitude overflowing. As they stood together, a few villagers gathered around, eager to hear her story. She recounted the tale of her journey into the forest, of the encounter with the witch doctor's spirit, and the battle she had fought within herself. The villagers listened intently, spellbound by the mystery and wisdom woven into her story. For the first time, Annabell shared the full truth of her past, the toxic love, the mistakes, and her desperate attempt to forget. But she also shared how she had ultimately faced those memories, unearthing the power to redefine herself. By the time she finished, she saw understanding and admiration in the villagers' eyes, and in their quiet, accepting presence, she felt a profound sense of belonging. Over the coming days, Annabell found herself helping others who were haunted by regrets or painful memories. She listened to them with empathy and shared her own journey, encouraging them to face their truths rather than run from them. As she did, the village's mysterious aura shifted from one of hidden sorrow to a place of healing and strength. In time, Annabell became a guide for those who sought answers in the forest, knew that unlike her, not everyone's past could be resolved, and some mysteries would remain hidden. But she also knew that facing oneself was a journey worth taking. Her own freedom had come not from forgetting, but from embracing all that she was, the light and the shadow. So though she never returned to her old life, Annabell found peace and purpose, helping others find the freedom she'd once feared was lost forever. The witch doctor's curse, his twisted hold on regret, lost its grip on the village, as each person, inspired by Annabell's journey, chose to walk their own path of courage and truth. The quiet of the nights that followed, Annabell would sometimes look out toward the forest, feeling its deep silence embrace her. She'd smile, knowing that while she might never escape the memories entirely, she had finally learned to live with them, free, whole, and at peace.